Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all the places at Hawk Blogger. And we're coming to you after a weird tie, the really unsatisfying tie of an NFL football game. It was a preseason game. There were a lot of storylines to this one, and eager to share all of it with all of you guys. If you haven't already, click like, subscribe. Click the little bell to get notified. Now would be a good time to do that. I would appreciate it. Also, really looking to get some more 5-star reviews over at Apple Podcasts. If you're listening to this, please take a second to give us a 5-star review. If you're not going to give us a 5-star review, shoot me a note and tell me why before you lower our score. We're trying to get it to 4.7. We've been sitting at 4.6. Want to get there as soon as possible. All right. Well, normally I would just jump on here and talk to you about what I thought of this game, which I'm going to do anyway. But I had this little conversation with our good pal, Jeff Simmons, who is on the road in his car. And I was like, hey, do you want to jump on? And he's like, well, do you really want to have, someone with car audio on your show? And I said, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's ironic because Stacey Ross just asked if I would join their show later today, but I will be driving a honkin' RV out to a music festival. And I was like, I don't think you want me on your show while I'm in a big RV. And she said, no, probably not. So that goes to show you the different levels of quality and standard over at Seattle Sports versus here at Hawk Blogger. But Jeff, man, good to have you. How are you doing on this Friday?
I'm good. I didn't get a ton of sleep last night. I stayed up. I was planning to go to bed after I saw a little bit of Jaylen Milro in the second half, and that game got so weird, and that ending was so bizarre. I tried going to bed at one point, and I was just like lying in bed. I'm like, I want to watch and see this. So I went back downstairs and watched the end of it. So I'm on a little less sleep than I'm used to, but you know what? I'm in the car. I got some free time to myself, which is pretty rare at this time, and I'm happy I can just talk about this game with someone.
Yeah, me too. I have so many thoughts, but I'm dying to hear what are the first things that, like, when you think about that game, what are the first things that come to mind?
The first thing that comes to mind is how buttoned up they looked relative to the important players on the Raiders. I thought they looked way more buttoned up, especially offensively, in terms of what I was expecting the first. So we talked about it last Saturday. I was expecting the offense to look horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously at that point, McDonald hadn't clarified the O-line starters were going to play, but I thought just how just schematically, they weren't crazy schematically. It was just their operation, how different it looked, how smooth it looked. And like for years I've talked about, I want to see like the infrastructure of a good run game. And obviously that fullback last night jumped off the page, I think, to everyone who watched the game, seeing what he could do and how comfortable they were running the ball. And they're like not bit players, but they're second stringers who played early. They looked better than the Raiders. The Raiders were playing that first string defense, and how smooth the offense looked. Like Drew Lock is a frustrating watch for a lot of us, but I think just the run game and some of the key players I really wanted to see. I think Brian Baldinger put out a really cool clip of Grais Zable. But
I'm going to play that. I'm going to play that on this show for people that missed the Brian Baldinger clip on Zable. I will play it for us in a little bit. But yeah, those all stand out for sure.
Yeah.
What about individual players? Did any individual players get your attention?
Robbie Utes would probably be number one for me. Torrey Horton was really, really important to me. And I thought Sundell looked pretty good. I know I saw you share some PFF grades, but I thought he looked really good. And I was definitely fascinated by Jaylen Milro.
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of them there. And I mean, I kind of thought Robbie Utes was like one of the stars of the game. I mean, he didn't play that much. I think he ended up with 8 snaps. So, like, I don't know that it's fair to call him a star of the game with 8 snaps, but I don't know, Jeff, when you haven't seen a fullback on the field for a while, and you certainly haven't seen a 275-pound like jackhammer of a fullback, it was just nice to see like extra blocker on people's plays and the ability to steal some guys. And then honestly, he even surprised me. He was pretty comfortable out there in passing patterns. You know, Palmer, obviously played tight end in college, but I thought he got interfered with on the first pass for him. But yeah, I thought he was a real reason for optimism after this one.
Yeah, like when we did our show like before free agency, I remember I think I caught you off guard with I said I think Patrick Ricard would be one of the best signings a Mike Macdonald team could make. And we found out pretty quickly Ricard was going back to Baltimore. And I then remember when me and you were doing the draft show and Oots got drafted, we kind of together figured out he was a fullback. And he kind of said Ricard was, and I know that's he might be the best big fullback in the league. Like Kyle Juszczyk is more of the athletic, but watching him yesterday kind of reminded me of him. And just seeing what that guy can do and what that presence does for a run game. And I heard Roots on your show, and he was talking about just how fast things are going. And I'm like, okay, the first game might be pretty rough. To see him just come from the interview I heard with you to be he looked like the best player on the field at one point. Again, fullback, but I was shocked. I was legitimately shocked to see how good he looked.
So you go from Oots as a fullback to I think the offensive line. I mean that has to be the next place that at least my mind goes. And this is your first chance to see the John Benton, Rick Dennison offensive line, and to see Anthony Bradford and Abe Lucas and Jalen Sundell and Grais Zable all together. What were your impressions of those guys?
I was really impressed of how cohesive it looked, how smooth it looked. I've been cautiously hoping that they were going to look better than people thought. I saw Ben Solak put out a comment the other day where he was he was 8.2 out of 10 scared because of the O-line against Sam Darnold. And I got triggered by that. I'm like, you know what? And then the other day I was wondering, maybe am I being too optimistic here? But seeing them live the other day, I know that was against first-string defense. That was the whole first-string defense. They didn't game plan them. They just looked smooth and cohesive. And everything we've been kind of hoping to see with the Benton-Dennison scheme, it just looked like it. It looked like the outside zone I've seen from the Rams and the outside zone I've seen from the Niners. And it was cohesive. There was no disaster. Even Josh Jones, who's, by your indications, had an iffy camp, he looked decent. I thought just seeing how smooth and how they all worked in conjunction and how well they looked like they've been coached, I'm a little more optimistic that this is going to be okay.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly said. Even the tone is spot on, Jeff, because we can't get anything too seriously optimistic or get too excited about a preseason game, right? We know these games are super misleading, and speaking of misleading, I want to read you the top grades for the offense for the Seahawks from PFF. We know PFF is all over the place, but let me just do this and then I'll explain why I'm doing this. And notice, pay attention to the players and the positions. Top graded player, tight end Nick Callerup, 90.8 grade, 87.5 run block grade.
That's
Abe Lucas, right tackle, 81.5 grade, 83.6 run block grade. Eric Saubert, tight end, 81.4 grade, 74.2 pass block grade. Grais Zable, left guard, 81.2, 79 run block grade, which is interesting because Gray is a better pass protector than a run blocker, but great to see that. Mike Jarrell played left tackle. They have him as right tackle, but he played left tackle, 78.3 grade, 82.8 pass block. Jacardier Wright, running back, 77.7. We'll talk about him a little bit later. Luke Felix Fualalo, left tackle, 77.7 grade, 91.9 run block grade. Josh Jones, 75.9, 78.6 run block. George Halani, running back, 75.7. We'll talk about him. Torrey Horton, 75.1. And then Robbie Oots, 72.2. Jeff, did you notice anything about the positions of the top graded players for the Seahawks on offense? Ooh, we lost Jeff. You back, Jeff? Jeff, you there? Traveling on the road, you never know when you're going to lose people. Well, what I noticed about the positions and the players there is that John Benton is having himself a really good start to his career in Seattle. And I can't remember the last time that a Seahawks team that you look at the offensive PFF grades and nearly every player at the top of the charts is either an offensive lineman or a tight end, and they're getting those good grades for run blocking. So that to me stood out. And I think that of all the, I think there's two people that for me had the best nights last night. And it wasn't a player. Number one for me was Clint Kubiak. Number two was John Benton. I think those two guys really had a encouraging first game from a play calling perspective for Clint Kubiak and from a coaching and development perspective for John Benton. Jeff, you back with us?
I am. I lost service in the car for a second, but now I'm back.
That'll happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much you heard of all those PFF grades, but pretty much everybody was a lineman or a tight end.
Yeah, I heard Oots at the end getting a low grade. Oots should have been a lot higher.
Oh, he got 72.2.
Yeah, it's still low in the Jeff football.
Yeah, fair enough.
No, I think you hit on the theme there. And one of the things that New Orleans beat writers, and they have a couple of really sharp beat writers, talked about last year, was how quickly the Kubiak staff installed what they want to do and how different it looked.
Yes.
And Nick Underhill, I think is his name. That was the one takeaway when the Seahawks hired Clint and the whole gang there, Benton, and that's really what it looked like. Like, I know me and you did shows where we talked about like the 2011 Texans. Like, if you want to see this thing run perfectly smoothly, but it's just like the way they used tight ends, the way they used offensive linemen. It looked a lot like the Kubiak. And usually, like, we've seen all these different coaches come in where it takes time. And you saw McDonald. It didn't look like a Mike McDonald defense in preseason last year. I was kind of taken back with how quickly it just looked different and looked like what those guys have run in other spots. And seeing Mike Robb on the broadcast last night, who knows a lot about fullbacks and
Here we go. This is why, I'm always going to risk these things with getting Jeff on the show because it's worth it to hear him. Like it's worth the technical difficulties. We'll see if we're going to be able to get around these reception issues for him while he's on the road.
Did you?
You back? You back, Jeff?
I did. My mom tried calling me, and it came across my auto CarPlay, and so I wonder if it cut me off there.
It did. Tell your mom to stop calling you, dude.
Yeah, I had to decline her twice, so I'll have to call her later.
Yeah, it's so funny you brought that up because that's exactly what occurred to me as I was watching it. I was like, I've been actually thinking about that the whole training camp, about how impressed people in New Orleans were with how quickly they were able to install that system. And then you think about the first two games of the Saints last year, like everyone was like, my God, this team might be like something. And then they got injured and it all fell apart, right?
Yeah.
But are like, can we dare to dream? Like, is it possible that one, that they will be faster to start than we believe? And two, and this is the bigger one, is it possible that Clint Kubiak's good?
Well, the thing that kind of struck me last night was just, it's not the offense is simplistic, but we've spent so much time thinking about skill position and talent, and that's typically what you need to look for in offense. But there was just a lot of like easy button stuff where if the run game could do all that, and they didn't really even get into like the play action game, and we saw a couple passes in the flat. I kind of see why what they're going for here. And if Clint Kubiak can just run like this basic level scheme, which I thought would take time, and then you throw in the JSN and Barner and some of the things, there's just so much out there that the run game kind of builds off of. And a lot of the offenses that we've seen with the Seahawks, you've needed guys to beat man coverage, and you've needed guys to open up down the field. And what the run game looked like last night with Oots and those guys, and with George Holani, like when you put the next two guys up against, that could really just make the offense pretty easy to run. And I think Rob mentioned this on your show. The thing of the San Francisco, a lot of the stuff was just quick stuff to open guys over the middle of the field. That's kind of where these two receivers win. So, yeah, if Clint Kubiak's even just above average, I think this offense is going to be a little easier to run than I might have realized at first.
Yeah, I mean, you think about, there's no Jackson Smith and Jigba in there. There was no Cooper Kupp. Sam Darnold didn't play, and I've told you Sam Darnold hasn't looked good when he hasn't looked good. So hopefully it's a little more credible when I tell you he has looked really good the last week. He has looked easily the best of the quarterbacks over the last week. And JSN has hit another gear. And then you're talking about no AJ Barner, who's also been really good. And no Kenneth Walker, no Zach Charbonnet, no Charles Cross. And it still looked good. And part of, I think you and I pay attention to things that are not in the box score. And watching the way that offense was called, no game planning, there was no none of that going on. But there were players who were schemed open just by the way that the offense is set up. There were play calls that connected to each other and just made sense and had a rhythm to them. The run game actually married to the pass game in a way that made sense. You had under center, you had play action, you had short passes, you had intermediate, you had explosive runs, explosive passes. I really thought Clint Kubiak just had as good of a game as you could have for a offensive coordinator in his first game in a preseason game. I thought it was a really impressive night for him.
And it really was, because we've seen the McVay offense and what that's looked like, and we've seen it against Seattle, and we've seen the Shanahan offense. And Seattle hired Shane Waldron a few years ago, and we get him, and it's this looks nothing not even the genius level of it, but even just the basics, the outside zone. Mm-hmm. It never really looked like that. There was the first game Waldron had with Seattle actually was great, but it never looked like that old school Mike Shanahan offense. And just seeing Clint Kubiak run it, and I think what you said is so right, the marriage of the run and the pass, and how it really, we've seen so much. I know before Grubb, even everyone just blames Grubb for this, but even before Grubb, what a lot of people said when they studied Seattle is how hard everything looked, and how the degree of difficulty of the things Geno Smith was doing even 2-3 years ago with Waldron was very tough. And that's what struck me last night. It was the exact opposite of that. The degree of difficulty was not that high. I think the offensive line getting off the ball was really good. I think how the run and the pass worked together, it just really connected. They had 2 drives against the Raiders' first-string defense that looked really easy. And obviously, it's going to be harder when the real lights come on, but I think that's what really struck me about Kubiak. It looked like the old Gary Kubiak, Shanahan stuff that we've all been kind of clamoring for over the years here.
Yeah, and the run blocking was, I think, the most impressive. I think it was such in stark contrast to what we saw last year, where Seahawks running backs were getting contacted behind the line of scrimmage, regularly. Their yards before contact was negative. And in this, you saw a push. And for a wide zone team, it was nice to also just see the power that they were able to get when they decided to go straight ahead, because there was a number of inside runs. But then pass protection was pretty good as well. And granted, I'll caveat all of this, but it's a preseason game and all that stuff. But the Seahawks, so far, of the teams that have played in the preseason, have the second highest pass blocking efficiency of any other team. So, I think you felt that. Forget the number for a second. there were times Drew Lock was sitting in the pocket there, like patting the ball for a long time, including his interception, which was a really poor throw. But you were not seeing free runners just kind of come through. There was one play in particular, Jeff, I saw where after like maybe 3 seconds, a guy started getting by Anthony Bradford, and Jalen Sundell moved off of his guy and blocked the shit out of the guy that was coming off Bradford. And I was like, yes, like that. Like, I have seen these guys go through these drills with John Benton and Rick Dennison every day at camp, where they're working on coordination of, okay, a rusher comes from here, a rusher comes from there, there's a twist there, here's how to pass them off. I didn't see that last year. I just didn't. And so to see that in practice and then show up in the game, that was pretty fun.
It feels like it's been years, and I don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse here because it's been one preseason game, but like we've talked about this before, like the last time the Seahawks had a competent run scheme that was coached exactly how it wasn't just like having Dwayne Brown and Mike Upati. Like it probably goes back to like the early Tom Cable years, where back when you could cut block and Tom Cable was kind of that zone blocking, cut blocking guy. Like it's really where everything was just coached so well, and just every year, just like a guard gets blown off the ball with the Seahawks and the plays are dead so fast. I think that was my biggest takeaway, is just hopefully they're going to be able to run their offense this year. And it feels like it's been so long where Russell Wilson's had to have magic and Geno Smith had to make all these crazy plays in the pocket. And the whole point of this scheme was to make, and why I think McDonald was so excited about them, was to make it easier on offensive linemen. And it sure looked like that in our first impression of them.
Yeah. I really thought that was the story of the game for me. It was the offense and how that they played. I think Torrey Horton looked great.
Yes.
He showed me a little more wiggle after the catch than I expected, which was cool to see. And, you know, we didn't get to see as much of Elijah Arroyo or Nicky Minwari, you know, the other rookies as much. But another rookie that I thought had a pretty strong game was Jared Ivey. You know, it wasn't like a flashy game, but it was the kind of game that I think his teammates and his coaches are going to appreciate. I thought he was really solid and physical against the run. And he's kind of, for me, showing up as somebody who can really be a backup to a DeMarcus Lawrence. He's not going to give you the pass rush, but he is going to be able to set the edge against the run. I thought he and Tyreek Smith did an admirable job.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of defensive players that I was super excited for. Just I think there's a pretty big gap between like the guys who play in preseason and the guys who didn't last night. And he was one of the interesting guys because he does have a lot of power. He was like a very low athletic score, but some of the things in college and why he third rounder showed up. And so
yeah, and
I thought he looked good. I thought Mike Moore showed some stuff.
He did. I agree on that. And I 100% agree with you on, like, I went into this game when I did my preview yesterday. I told folks I'm not expecting much from this defense, and they didn't play any starter. And it does feel like there's a pretty big gap between the starters and the backups. And I don't necessarily think it's because the backups are super bad, but the starters are really good. And the backups, there aren't a lot of dynamic players in that group. Like, there's not a lot of up and comers where you're like, oh, I can't wait to see this guy play. I thought Connor O'Toole had a nice game. Finally, you know, he got the only sack. I thought the pass rush in general was pretty much non-existent. Like, that was hard to watch. Yeah. And coverage was kind of uneven. Nehemiah Pritchett had a pick and had a decent game. He also gave up some plays, but I think overall it was positive for him. Josh Jobe had a pick, but also gave up some plays. You know, I don't know. I don't know if there's anyone else on defense that really got it for me.
Yeah, it was pretty hard to watch in the third quarter, and which is why I don't really put too much into the final score. Once, like, the backup corners came in, and like Job's interception was just an underthrow that went right to him. But there just wasn't, the coverage was pretty bad. It looked a lot like some of those end of the year games we saw last year when Jimmy Garoppolo was throwing some of those guys. And they couldn't really do anything in the second half. And yeah, there just wasn't. Yeah, it's based on how their drafts have gone. They haven't hit on a lot of day 3 guys the last few years. That's usually who's playing in these games. This year, most of their picks were towards offense. So there just isn't. It's a lot of what I would call camp bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of like Nehemiah Pritchett, and Job was even like a straight free agent they picked up, like none of these are really either drafted players or guys who were picked before the 6th round, and kind of looks like it.
I do want to bring up one part of this game that is probably not going to be get most people's attention. But if I were to tell you, Jeff, before this game that Ashton Genty and George Holani were going to play, and that George Holani was going to be the guy who absolutely balled out, I don't know if you would have believed me.
Definitely not. No. He's kind of gone under the radar. I was way more excited to see Damian Martinez, and Holani looked far more complete. And yeah, Genty didn't, his first impression, but I thought Genty didn't look particularly good. And the Raiders' first team O-line looked particularly bad against the Seahawks not playing any defenders. And there wasn't much running room, but he didn't look dynamic at all. And Holani, who did start ahead of him at Boise, yeah, he looked far better than any of the Raiders' backs. And he was incredibly competent playing in this defense, and the offense. And yeah, it's kind of a funny bit, but yeah, I think if you're watching the game last night, you've never seen any of those two players before, you wouldn't have guessed that Genty was the top 6 pick and Holani was the undrafted free agent.
Yeah. I thought one of the things that Holani brings to the table is he does everything well. He is a good outside runner. He's a good physical inside runner. He is a good blitz pickup guy. He is a good special teams player. He's a good receiver out of the backfield. He had a catch yesterday. He had, multiple explosive runs. He's just a guy that is easy as a coach to say, yeah, like I'll have him on my team. And I think that I have to reevaluate whether or not Damian Martinez is going to make this roster based at least off of what's going on from a depth chart perspective, where Holani's clearly above him, and the performances we saw. I didn't think Damian Martinez had that great of a game. I think Damian Martinez is much better than the player we saw last night, and I'm not calling it yet, but Holani's got a pretty sizable lead over Martinez at this point.
Yeah, I was very excited when they drafted Martinez. He was a guy we had in a lot of mock drafts, and I knew him from college. He looked stiff. He looked a little stiff last night. He's a bigger back, but he didn't look quick, and that's what he was in school. And again, sometimes like Charbonnet looked like that for the first couple of years of his career, where he finally took off when he started getting volume. But he didn't he didn't handle that kick return particularly well, or he pinned it way too far. He recovered it way too close to the end zone on the bounces, and he looked a little skittish going side to side. It wasn't the best first impression. You didn't see a lot of power or speed, and Holani just looked decisive. So yeah, not based on one game. Yeah, Holani looked pretty significantly ahead of Martinez, who I was pretty excited to see, to be honest.
Yeah, a couple other things, and I'll let you get going here in a bit, Jeff. But I think that there's a vibes to this stuff as well, and I kind of joked about it, but there was something kind of interesting to me about the fact that it was the Mike McDonald sideline that twice left to celebrate interceptions and got penalties, not the Pete Carroll sideline. And that Mike McDonald, after the game, when I asked him about it, he smiled and he's like, that's the cost of doing business, and that these guys are so eager to play. And you could feel the energy on the sideline. Those guys were so into this game. From a vibes perspective, I thought the Seahawks brought it, and maybe that's something that will show up as this team kind of prepares for the regular season. The other thing I wanted to bring up, while I know Jeff's probably dealing with some audio issues. So I wanted to play for you this audio of Brian Baldinger, who is talking about Grais Zable. And I can't play the video for you, but I can play the audio. Let me make sure it is up there. So you guys should be able to hear this. I have not heard this yet, so I'm going to hear this together.
The Seattle Seahawks spent the first-round picks on this man, Grais Zable out of North Dakota State. And boy, what a debut he had. Like, this is Grais Zable. Like, he is a pit bull. He just stays on you until you hit the ground, and then he rolls on top of you. But you watch him in every single phase of the game against Tyree Wilson, once the 6th pick in the draft. Like, once he sticks to you, he doesn't get off you. Like, he stays on you. All right? Pick any play. Any play that he played last night. No bad plays. Like, he's just wiring these guys up, one after another. Flat pocket. You go, okay, how long do you need, Drew Lock? Do you need 3 seconds? Do you need 4 seconds? How long do you need? I'll give you as long as you need right here. I got no clock in my head. All I want to do is block as long as there's no whistle. Like, here he is. Like, this is exactly what we saw at the Senior Bowl this year. The exact same thing. Like, this is a player. Like, here he is on the slide away, right? He just wires his guys up. I mean, he saw some good players last night. Adam Butler is a good player, real good player. But he did a great job last night. It was fun to watch him. They're better. They're better up front with Grais Zable. Like, everybody should get a Zable jersey. Start buying them now. They're going to fly off the shelves. This guy is going to be in the breakdown every week. I can tell it already.
Oh, that brings a smile to my face. I mean, I saw Baldy at the Senior Bowl. Like, I sat next to him. We talked for a little bit. He knows exactly what I know, which is what we saw last night from Grais Zable is what we're going to see for the next decade. Like, that's who he is. He is a absolutely ready for the NFL guard. I mean, he can play multiple positions. And one of the things I encourage you to go watch the video too. There's some of these plays where he's starting in left guard, right? And the play, like the guy he's blocking ends up pretty far out and he's on an island. It almost looks like he's a tackle at that point because there's no one around him. He played tackle in college. He's comfortable blocking in space. He can stay in front of a lot of these guys. And he is a really skilled pass protector. Doesn't mean he's going to be perfect. He is a rookie. He's going to have growing pains. He absolutely is. But this is a player who is ready to be a plus starter as a rookie. And that's very rare in the offensive line, on the offensive line. And for him to do it next to his college roommate, Jalen Sundell, I thought was really cool. I interviewed Gray in the locker room after the game. You can find the audio of that interview, plus Robbie Oots, Mike Morris, Mike Jarrell, Jared Ivey. All of that's over at patreon.com/hawkblogger. You guys can get access to that. Also get ad-free audio and access to the Discord channel. And you know, just the opportunity for him to play that game next to his college roommate and to just ball out and for it to not be a big deal. He didn't overperform. He wasn't giddy about it. He just stacked rep after rep, and that's what he's going to continue to do. And you compare that to the level of left guard play that the Seahawks got last year with Laken Tomlinson, especially in pass protection, and it's just not going to be close. It's a huge upgrade. And then Abe Lucas, who bottled up Max Crosby for the snaps that he played and was maybe the best player on the field at times when he was out there. Huge upgrade at right tackle. I think Anthony Bradford is playing at least an upgraded version of what he was last year. Doesn't mean he is a huge upgrade, so don't get it twisted. I'm not saying Anthony Bradford's a Pro Bowl guard, but I think he played a passable guard level against the Raiders yesterday. There was not the immediate instant pressures or the whiffs in pass protection that we've seen. And he is part of creating that push. And then the real fascinating one's going to be center. What do you do at center? Does Oluwatimi's back injury allow Jalen Sundell to seize this job? Or has Olu distanced himself enough that he gets it back? And if he's better than what we saw from Jalen Sundell, what does that mean? So I think that this offensive line, I have all these clips now, and people are going to be able to point at them and either laugh or say, man, maybe we should have listened. I think this is going to be maybe the most improved group in the entire NFL. From where they were last year, the level of play, the type of scheme, the type of players, to what they will be this year. I think it could be the biggest difference between one position group on any NFL team. Now, I don't know every group and what's changed, so I that's just off the top of my head, but the takeaway there is I think it's going to be a really big difference. And one of the things that's really fun, in particular when the offensive line is the group that's improving and good, is it can make your play caller look really smart. It can make your quarterback look better. It can make your running backs look unbeatable. It can make all sorts of things better. That is the point of having a good offensive line. It can make your defense better because they're not on the field as much and they don't feel as much pressure. Your defensive coordinator can take more risks because he feels like the offense is going to be able to control the ball when they get it back. It makes your third down offense better, which, by the way, was like 7 for 10, I think, at least in the first half. I don't know exactly where it finished. I can bring it up. But, I mean, it makes red zone that much better. So I want to look off. Third down offense finished 8 for 15. It started 7 for 10, so it finished 1 for 6. But or 1 for 5, excuse me. But yeah, the red zone 2 for 2 last night, and 2 rushing touchdowns, and 170 yards on the ground, and 5.3 yards per carry. All that is just music to my ears. So broader strokes, even than that, is what did Mike Macdonald say he wanted the identity of this team to be? Tough, physical, smart, reliable, right? All those words. And you couldn't be those things without a willingness and an effectiveness in the run game. And we knew that they were going to be willing to run the ball this year. They were going to run. I had no doubts about that, but we didn't know, and we still don't know for sure how effective they were going to be. Last night, they were both. They were willing and effective. And that's going to be the measure for how this season goes. This team needs to be a top 10-ish rushing offense in order to really talk about 11, 12 wins, moving on and, getting and moving on in the playoffs. And I think they have the ability to do that. The other part of this that we haven't spent as much time talking about is Jaylen Milro. And obviously I spent a bunch of time pumping him up this preseason. I thought he had a mixed performance. I was a little disappointed not to see more of the under center play action game, which is what the staple is of this offense. I think they were really working on giving him an opportunity. They have to be in shotgun for the read option stuff. And so that's what they were working on. And it was a shame that the 2 penalties that called back 2 big plays, one a scramble by Milro, one, I think, a big run. I think it was Jacardier Wright. Jacardier Wright had a great game, by the way, and remains a guy I think to keep an eye on. But, I think we saw some of the flashes, but he was quicker to run than I've seen in training camp. We did not get to see as many of his passes down the field. We did not get to see him go through his progressions quite as much. He had that sack late in the game. He had the decision on 4th down, and I know there's people arguing with me about the fact that I said he had an easy first if he ran it. He just chose to throw it. Maybe easy is the wrong word, but there's zero doubt in my mind that the probabilities were significantly higher of him getting a first down when you've got Jaylen Milro having to beat one man in space to gain 1 inch versus throwing the ball 15, 20 yards downfield to Marshall Lang. Like, there's zero chance that was a higher percentage of ability to convert that fourth down. And when it's fourth down, you got to just put your head down and get it and use what is your strongest strength as a player, which is his running. So I didn't love that part, but I will say this: the knock on Jaylen Milro as coming out of school were a few things. One, he holds on to the ball too long. Two, he is imprecise with his passes. Three, his processing and decision-making isn't great. I thought his accuracy last night was terrific. There was one pass where he was a little bit off, and it was the out route to Tyrone Broden, who went just off his hands. And one of the things that was cool about that is Milro was throwing with anticipation on that play. The ball was out of his hands before Broden came out of his break. That's actually a good thing. Like, even though it was an incompletion, I loved that he made that throw. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the film study that it's Broden that gets the coaching point of, hey man, you gotta get out and get to that spot sooner. I liked that Milro threw that with anticipation, and it was not a bad throw. I thought his throw on the run to Broden on the touchdown drive where he was running to his right was a strike. It was a beautiful throw. Throwing on the run is a skill in of itself. His throw to Brady Russell, it was just 7 yards, but I kind of liked that he was able to loft it over a player. That is a throw that I've seen him get picked on in training camp when he has to put some air under the ball on these shorter throws. That's where Nicky Manwari got a pick six against him a few practices ago. So I saw some things I liked. I saw some things, like, I didn't see some things that I know he does well, is the best way I can put it. So there's more. There's more there than what people were able to see. And so that I left a little disappointed because I wanted people to see what I've been seeing. Didn't happen as much yesterday. But what you did get to see is when he decides to move, when he decides to run, my goodness, right? Like, nobody keeps up with him. That run out of his own end zone for, what was it, 28 yards? That was a blink. And I was sitting there thinking, like, my gosh, he's had such a rough go of it in this game because the penalties called back those plays. He was playing from behind the sticks. Like, that wasn't great. And then he gets a possession after Damian Martinez fumbles the kickoff and he's backed up in his own end zone. And I'm like, oh man, this is not going his way. And then he flipped the field with that run, which was really, really cool. And it's going to be fun to see how that team learns how to best utilize him, because I still think they're in this position where they're trying to coach him up to be a normal starting quarterback while also keeping in mind that they want to find a way to utilize him during the game as a weapon this season, even as a backup. So, I think we'll start to see a little bit of transition as training camp gets into like the next couple of weeks, where they will potentially start to focus a little bit more on how he might be used this year. But the read option is a little bit of a sign along those lines. I'll be curious to see what else they do. And on the 4th and short play, I also, like, as much as I've praised Clint Kubiak, I didn't love the play call at all. At the same time, I'm pretty sure they know what they're doing in those situations, and they don't want to show their hand in a preseason game. And why not give your quarterback this opportunity to do a play that you probably wouldn't call necessarily and give him a run pass option? And now they have a coaching point to work on with him. So it wasn't terrible, but I didn't love that call. Just if it was in regular season, I really wouldn't have loved that call. Speaking of which, there was on the other side, there were the Raiders tried their tush push, and the Seahawks stoned them the first time. And then what a terrible spot. Like the second time, they actually held him even with fewer. They held him without any gain at all. And somehow they gave him a first down. I was like, what's going on? And then the virtual spot thing that came on and took like 5 minutes. I don't understand how any computerized measuring system takes longer to identify whether it's a first down or not than just using the sticks. I would have liked if the virtual spot was an option, like give it to me on that fourth down play with the Raiders, because there's no way he got anything, let alone gained a yard. So anyway, that's my little complaint. Other little bits. I know that folks are talking about the fact that there's a picture of Geno Smith flipping off Seahawks fans, and they're like, oh man, Geno is a jerk. Well, the picture, just to be clear, because this is going to go, I'm sure it's already catching steam, but there was a sign that a fan was holding that said, bigger bust, Geno Smith or Jamarcus Russell. And Geno was flipping that guy off. Now, I don't think it's great for Geno to do that regardless, but he wasn't flipping off Seahawks fans. Like, let's not get this wrong. He wasn't coming into Lumen and flipping off Seahawks fans. He was annoyed with that guy. Stupid thing to do, but let's leave it to those two to figure out and not like blow it up into something that it wasn't. All right. So with that, I'm looking through. I think I've got a super chat here or two. Let me get to these. Nick Kithcart says, G. Scott said that Drew looks like the best quarterback on the team on Brock and Salk. What a trash take. I'm sorry, but no. Yeah, I'm not going to say that G. Scott has a trash take. I understand where he's coming from. Drew Lock's probably had the best overall performance from OTAs all the way through training camp. If you look at collectively everything, he's probably played the best, but I don't think he's better than Sam Darnold. And let's not forget that he's been going against second string defenders, and you saw the Seahawks second string defense yesterday. It's not the first string. Sam Darnold's going against Witherspoon, Woolen, Julian Love, Kobe Bryant, Ernest Jones, Leonard Williams, Derek Hall, Boye Mafe, Byron. Like, he's going against those guys. Drew Lock isn't. So I think it's a little bit disingenuous to say he's the best quarterback. And I think Sam Darnold the last week has been the best quarterback. And his practice on Monday was spectacular. I thought it was really, really good. And you kind of couple that with how the offense played last night, and it's got me thinking things might be really trending in the right direction. Detail-oriented Bobby says, I don't normally get excited about preseason games because of who is usually playing, but seeing our twos go against some of the Raiders' ones and our threes going against their twos and the results, I'm excited. I hear you, Bobby. I think that's really cool. And it was a little weird. Like, I'm probably overstating this, but I don't remember many situations where one team has played their starters and the other team doesn't. Usually coaches talk about these preseason games ahead of the games and they coordinate who's going to play. I was surprised to see Geno Smith out there. I was surprised to see Max Crosby out there. And, Jacoby Myers and that whole crew, but they were there. And it was kind of cool that Mike McDonald didn't blink. He's like, we're doing what we came to do. We're playing our twos. The only starters that the Seahawks played were Grais Zable, maybe Anthony Bradford, assuming he's a starter, and Abe Lucas. I was a little surprised Abe Lucas played, but they played that line, and thankfully they did, because I think that was, as we talked about, a real highlight of that game last night. Other things, I mean, as far as players that helped themselves last night, as we look through that list, I would say that Anthony Bradford did nothing to hurt himself in that. I will say I think Christian Haynes did well for himself. I think that he wasn't great, but he had a nice block downfield on a screen pass. Those are the plays where I think Christian Haynes is going to look the best, when he's out in space and blocking downfield. I just haven't seen him like make as much of a difference in the phone booth, so to speak, at the line of scrimmage. I thought Mike Jarrell played really well, and I continue to think the arrow is pointing very up for him. Josh Jones did pretty well himself, though, and I think Josh Jones, as a run blocker, interesting. I was encouraged that he played well, because he's had a rough camp. And for him to be your backup swing tackle, you want to see that he's good. One of the things to note about Josh Jones is that he is a natural left tackle. When he was asked to play right tackles, where some of the struggles were coming, maybe he's not really a swing tackle. Maybe he is more of a left tackle. But he did play, I think, well last night. We already talked about Oots. I don't think Oots needs help. I think his position is pretty much locked. I think Derek Young helped himself a little bit last night. Nice big catch that he had. Obviously, Torrey Horton continues his march. Marquez Valdez-Scantling did not play, and that surprised me a little bit, because the indication there is that he's totally safe. And that's probably the reality, because he's got a $3.5 million guaranteed deal. And even though that doesn't sound like much, the team doesn't want to give away that kind of money to somebody who's not going to play for them. So he probably is a lock on the roster. But if I'm Derek Young, if I'm the coaching staff and I'm looking at Derek Young, who is a much better special teams player than almost any of the receivers, and is making some plays now in the passing game, and then I'm looking at MVS, who's made almost no plays during camp and is not a special teams player, and you're probably going to keep 5 receivers, not 6. I mean, this could get tight for MVS. And I know fans are like, yeah, screw it, get him off the team. But that's not how the coaches and the front office see it. That's just not the business side of it. So that one remains an interesting battle to watch. There was a small play that I wanted to call out that I bet nobody noticed. And this is when Jaylen Milro was running and he went out of bounds, and he was tackled out of bounds. And Mason Richmond, number 78, ran over there and was about to knock the crap out of the defender before somebody on the Seahawks got in front of him and said, nope, like, it's all right. He's fine. Don't worry about it. I loved that from Mason Richmond. I don't know how he played overall. I'll have to rewatch, but I loved that play from him. Other guys, I mean, Cody White dropped a screen pass and then got blown up on what would have been a nice catch, but late in the first half. So he had 2 drops. He is a guy that I thought had such a big opportunity coming into this training camp. I think it's slipping away for him. Jake Bobo, I'm still curious where that's going to go. I think he makes this team. But he's, got to figure out exactly what your numbers are going to be. I'll do an updated 53 soon. And then defensively, I don't know what to make of like Jarek Reed's performance. I thought D'Anthony Bell had a nice game. I thought Jalen Gaines blocked the final field goal. Obviously that was great. I thought probably the guy that for me stood out the most outside of Mike Morris, who I just think had a nice game, I thought was Jared Ivey. I think he looks to me like an NFL player. I think he's like a Roy Robertson Harris is the best way I can describe Jared Ivey. I don't think he's going to be your big, fast twitch pass rusher. I don't think he's going to get into the backfield a bunch, but he is going to be, he's like got man strength for a rookie. And strength just plays in the NFL every single time. And he's got it. So I think Jared Ivey's going to make this squad. I like that Nick Eamon-Worry had a nice play in run support. That is one of the biggest question marks about Nick Eamon-Worry heading into his NFL career, is how he plays against the run. So I like that. Tyreek Smith, like I said earlier, I think had a nice game. I don't think it was a standout game, but I think it was a physical, active game from him. I thought Quinton Bohanna played well as a nose tackle. I liked the way he looked. I think that the team is probably evaluating whether they can get away with him as their nose tackle instead of Jonathan Hankins. So lots of things to kind of take in there. Brandon Peely had a play or two in this one as well. It was fun. In the press box, I was talking to a guy who was coming down from Anchorage, where Brandon Peely's from, covering the game, and he was interviewing him afterwards. It was cool to see. So lots of good stuff. I wish it didn't end in a tie. It feels like a win. Does it feel like a win for anybody else? Like the fact that the Seahawks were up 16-3 at halftime, the fact that they did all of these things, I find myself walking away feeling like this was a win, even though the scoreboard does not agree. Jason Myers makes an extra point. It would have been a win, but we'll save that conversation for another time. I think that's it. I will say one of the cool things last night is there were literally like probably 100 fans that were there because of HBTix.com, 100 Seahawks fans that went to that game, got to see everything that happened, got their tickets on HBTix. And there's tickets available for the Chiefs game next week. So you can see probably Andy Reid supposedly going to play some starters. Maybe Patrick Mahomes is going to, I think the Seahawks might play some starters, Mike McDonald said. So go to HBTix.com, find some tickets, go to the Chiefs game. If you've got tickets you want to get rid of, sell them on HBTix so that we can get them into the hands of Seahawks fans. I'm telling you, one of the things I'm going to probably start putting some additional information up there, but let's make sure these are going to Seahawks fans. If you're selling your tickets, do the things I've put on the site to help verify that these are Seahawks fans. I don't want it. People say, I'm buying a ticket for myself. I'm going to bring my friend who's a Vikings fan. No, I don't want you get your tickets elsewhere. I don't want anyone who's not a Seahawks fan using this service. And I've tried to give folks the tools to help verify that they are Seahawks fans. And people could put in fake Twitter accounts or make them DM you from that Twitter account that should have a history of them tweeting about the Seahawks and following, or, their Instagram account or whatever else that verifies that they are a Seahawks fan. Make them DM you from there. Make them prove that they are a Seahawks fan. I'm trying to put tools in your hands. I can't use them for you, but let's keep doing it, because there are literally thousands of seats, thousands of tickets available for this season on HBTix.com. I want to get as many thousands of Seahawks fans into the Lumen Field as possible. All right, folks. I got to jet because I'm going to be gone this weekend. My family and I are heading to a music festival. I don't know if I'm going to do, almost certainly not going to do a pod tomorrow, Saturday. So it's good that we got to talk to Jeff today. I probably will not be able to do a pod Sunday. I don't know for sure. We'll see what time I get home. And so I won't be at training camp either Saturday or Sunday either. So Monday is most likely when I will be back with you. Keep an eye out. Make sure you click like, subscribe, click the bell to get notified, because if I go live, that's the best way to know. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your Friday. I will talk to you all soon. Until then, I'm Brian Nemhauser. This has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care.